Renowned as one of the toughest rallies in the UK and beyond, the Isle of Man once again plays host to a variety of major championships. And once again, the leading global gaming company, 138.com, comes back on board as headline sponsor for the event. The 138.com Rally Isle of Man will see battles right through the field, fought over 3 days, 21 stages and 159 stage miles. And we can take you back to the beginning to relive the highs and lows and see how the event came to its conclusion some 48 hours later. The event will be split into various classes and categories, and during the show we'll take a look at the international, historic and national sections of the event and some of those class battles within. So on to those first stages of the event, and there will be a small lead for Keith Cronin and Mikey Galvin at the end of the opening day. 7 seconds would be the advantage, not much, but a good place to start. Matt Edward and Darren Garrett had been drafted into the M Sport team for this event and will be running with the Evo upgrade on the Fiesta for the first time. It will be a great start for the pair as they take up second place. And for Fredrik Arlin and Torsten Eriksson, it would be third. They would be in a championship battle this weekend and third wasn't ideal, but there were still many more miles for them to try and gain a place or two on that leaderboard. There would be a championship battle in the historic event too. Jason Pritchard and Phil Clark hadn't had the best of starts to the season and were trying to get that back on track. They lead the way here after day 1, exactly where they needed to be. Rob Smith and Alan Cook were previous winners here in the Isle of Man and go well on the stages. They take up second place at this stage in the event, 17 seconds back from Pritchard. And for Nick Elliott and Dave Price, it would be third. They were in a fight with Pritchard for the British Historic title coming into this round with an advantage, but Asphalt wasn't left third second. Not everyone will be having a good event. This corner catching out a few crews, the first of which being Neil Williams and Ashley Trimble. They wouldn't be the only ones to get caught out here, with Stuart Anderson and Paul Jenkins unfortunately doing even more damage and being forced to retire. In the National Rally, it would be the early lead for Dan Harper and Chris Campbell. Current Manx champions, they were of course expected to go well, but the competition here this weekend wouldn't let them have it too easy. Chasing down Harper for the lead would be Andrew Dudgeon and Joseph Dooley. The Evo pair 29 seconds back at this stage, but keeping them in their sights. They would have to keep an eye out behind though, with Stu Bainborough and Jay Nicholl sitting only 0.5 seconds back in third place. Things were certainly close going into day 2. So at the end of day 1, it's the lead for Keith Cronin in the International, Jason Pritchard holds the lead in the Historics, and Dan Harper edges out his advantage in the national section of the event. On to the second day of stages, and it would still be the lead for Keith Cronin and Mikey Galvin. This point marked the end of their first point scoring round, so they could be happy that win number 1 was in the bag. There wouldn't be any change for Matt Edwards and Darren Garrett either. They still lie in second place. The only thing to change would be the gap to the lead, now at just over 18 seconds. And for Fredrik Arlin and Torsten Eriksson, it would be third. It wasn't the ideal place to end the first round of their title fighting weekend, but it wasn't over just yet. They just had a little more pressure going into the second half of the event. Rhys Yates and Andrew Ruffhead would be sitting just outside the podium places with 4th place. Rhys's event didn't end too well last year with a crash, so he wouldn't want to get too close to the limit this weekend. And for Alex Laffey and Patrick Walsh, it would be 5th place, showing some good pace here this weekend and setting some very competitive times. In the two-wheel drive crews, it would be Callum Devine and Keith Moriarty leading the way after stage 11. They would have 27 seconds of a lead in that class and their own British Championship Junior title fight. Marty Gallagher and Dean O'Sullivan would be second in that class at this stage. There have been movement at the top of the results throughout the weekend so far, but they were opening up a bit of a gap behind them now. And in that place behind were Oscar Solberg and Dale Furness. The first time on the island for Solberg and the first time in the car together for this pairing. But things were clearly working out so far. And there would be just one crew in the RC3 class this weekend, with Mark Barnes and Terry Crowther taking that place in the Fiat 500. Just like the Internationals, the Historics would also be using this point as the split from their first round of 2. And for Jason Pritchard and Phil Clark, that meant the win. All he needed now was to do the same for the second half of the event to keep his championship hopes alive. For Rob Smith and Alan Cook, there wouldn't be any change in that second place. It would be 35 seconds of a difference at the top now though. Nick Elliott and Dave Price had done what they needed to do, claiming third place on this leg of the event, their championship still alive at this stage. And for Barry Jones and Ewan Griffiths, it would be fourth place, 26 seconds back from Elliott at this stage in the event. Stanley Orr and Andrew Bush make a good start and lead the way in their class for now. Sitting in 5th place overall in the Historics 2, they would in fact be only 2 seconds back from Jones ahead. Guy Woodcock and Will Rogers climb a few places on day 2 and move up to 6th overall, lying 2nd in the H3 class as well. And 3rd in that class, as well as rounding out the top 10 overall, were Declan Jackson and Barry McCarney in the S score. Ray Cunningham and Gerard Gill would be the fastest in their H1 class and fastest of the mini crews this weekend, leading the class and lying in 16th overall. Ricky Profit and Graham Weil would be a few places back, 19th overall, and lying 2nd in that class in the Porsche. Andrew Stokes and Adrian McNally take up 2nd place in the H2 class at this stage, quite a way back from Stanley Orr in the lead, but enjoying a battle for those other podium places. And the fight would be with Ken Graham and Rory McCann, 3rd in the class for now, and just behind Stokes on the overall results too. For Desi Nutt and Geraldine McBride, it would be 3rd in the H1 class, around a minute and a half behind Ricky Profit in the class. Ian Clare and Anthony Elks would be 2nd of the minis. They would be in a different class to Cunningham though, so it would be the H7 class lead for them at this stage. Peter Horsberg and Graham Carter would be 2nd in that class. They were around a minute back from the lead, but holding their own in that 2nd place. And it would be 3rd for Peter Ellaby and Ben Anderson, a few places back on the overall results, in 34th overall. The lead in the National Rally wouldn't change into day 2. Daniel Harper and Chris Campbell still lead the way there, and their advantage at the top, now 40 seconds. For Andrew Dudgeon and Joseph Dooley, it would be 2nd. They were managing to keep everyone else behind them, even if they were struggling to catch the WRC ahead. Change now in 3rd, as we see Jamie Dukes and Dave Williams move up to take that place in the Mitsubishi Mirage. Regulars now on the Isle of Man and loving the stages. Sadly, things were not quite going to plan for Stu Bainborough and Jane Nichol. The car not running right, they slipped down a little and into 4th place. And for Nigel and Kaylee Cannell, it would be 5th. They would be just 5 seconds back from Bainborough ahead and leading the N7 class as well. And 2nd in that class would be Dave and Rachel Corris. The Escort WRC always a favourite out on the Manx roads. They round out the top 10 overall with that place too. As for Colin Quirk and Will Brown, it would be 3rd place in the class, sitting just outside the top 10 with 11th overall, out in the R5 car this week. For Stanley McCown and Nigel Gawley, it would be 1st place in the N4 class, the pair lying in 13th place overall too. Jodie Bocott and David Miller were relative newcomers to the Isle of Man and didn't have much experience here. That wasn't stopping them pushing though, and lying in 14th overall and 1st in the N5 class. And for Alan McDowell and Gavin Hesseltine, it would be a few places back overall and 2nd in the class behind Bocott. Kevin and Stephen Horgan have a good first half of the event to end this leg with the lead in the N2 class in the Civic. A little way back from the N4 lead would be second in the class for Neil Morgan and Sean Hughes at this stage in the event. And third in that class would belong to Carl Gower and Mark Perryman, 26 seconds back from Morgan after stage 11. Luke Tunney and Mike Well will be lying third in the N5 class at this stage. An uneventful start for the pair, which was always good, especially after crashing out of the event at this stage 2 years ago. Philip Hamilton and Joe Comerford would be lying second in the N2 class at this stage, the Irish pair with a good margin either side of them on the results. And third in that class, but a few places back overall, would be Dan Shacklock and Laura Jennings, 32nd place overall at this stage in the event. It would be an ideal start for Greg Pye and Ken Cotty as they take the lead in the N3 class and keep it there until the end of this stage in the event. They would be 34 seconds ahead of Terry Phillips and Jessica Quirk, second in the class and 37th place overall. There would be just one crew in the N1 class, so that belonged to Louise Thomas and Heidi Woodcock in the Mini. And it would be a restart today for Andrew Yates and Sinclair Young, lying third in the N3 class after failing to finish the opening day. So with the event halfway through, it's much the same in the lead of each section, but those fights further back are starting to take shape now. Friday evening would mark the start of the second half of the event, and although the results would start fresh for some of the championships, the overall results would remain the same, with Keith Cronin and Mikey Galvin continuing to lead the way. The top of the international rally wasn't really changing. Matt Edwards and Darren Garrett would continue to keep up with the pace of our rally leaders and lie in second place overall. And for Fredrik Arlin and Torsten Eriksson, it would still be third. The gap now to Edwards had grown with a spin in one of the evening stages, ruining any chances of the British Championship title for the pair now. Jason Pritchard and Phil Clark were edging out a little more advantage stage by stage as the event went on, leading the way still and with over a minute of the lead now. It would still be Rob Smith and Alan Cook lying in second place. They were unable to keep up with Pritchard, but were keeping a good distance from anyone behind them. The closest to Smith now would be Guy Woodcock and Will Rogers, third place overall in the Historics, and lying second in the class behind Smith. And things will remain the same in the National Rally 2. Daniel Harper and Chris Campbell were looking favourites to take the win, with an advantage of over a minute there. Andrew Dudgeon and Joseph Dooley would remain in second place, but that position was now coming under pressure from behind. Jamie Jukes and Dave Williams would be pushing hard in the evening stages, closing the gap to Dudgeon ahead and now just 3 seconds back from that second place, going into day 3. So before the final day, things remain much the same at the top. The crews had just 5 stages to try and change that on the final day of the event. On to those final stages then, and it will be the N1 class win for Louise Thomas and Heidi Woodcock, the only finishers in that class this weekend. The N5 class will see some different faces on the results at the end of the event, with Graham Davies and Matthew Crowe ending the event third in that class in the Sunbeam. For Terry Phillips and Jessica Quirk, it would be second place in the N3 class. No change for them in the final miles of the event. George Collister and Martin Burns will be another of the changes in the N5 results, taking second place in the class after returning to Super Rally on Friday evening. And there will be no change for Greg Pye and Ken Cotty on the final day, maintaining the lead in the N3 class to the finish to take the class win. For Dan Shacklock and Laura Jennings, it would be a third place in class finish in the Peugeot 206. They would be some way back from second in the class, but still a good overall result. A few places ahead of them would be that second place in the class, Philip Hamilton and Joe Comerford. They have a good run to end the event with 18th overall. On only their second asphalt event in the car, it would be the N5 class win for Luke Tunney and Mike Quayle. No problems for the pair on the event, and a good way to end the weekend. And a good end to the weekend too for Kevin and Stephen Horgan. They reached the end with the lead in the N2 class to take the win and 15th overall. Carl Gower and Mark Perryman settled for third place in the N4 class this weekend, in 13th place overall. They will be beaten in the class and overall results by Neil Morgan and Sean Hughes, who take second place in the N4 class and 12th overall. But taking the win in that class would be Stanley McCown and Nigel Gawley. Some good times seeing them also finish inside the top 10 overall with 8th place. Colin Quirk and Will Brown have a good run in the R5 class to take 7th place at the finish. And finishing just above them on the overall results would be Sean Kelly and Matt Daniels. The pair had increased the pace as the event went on to climb further up the leaderboard. Barry Groundwater and Michael Hendry also had a good run in the second half of the event, moving their way up to 4th place overall. Unfortunately, the podium would take a shake-up as we lose Jamie Jukes and Dave Williams when they crashed the car out of the event in a big way. Thanks to the help of the marshals, Coast Guard and rescue teams, as well as the strength of the car, the pair would need to stay in the hospital, but otherwise would be on the mend. This, of course, meant that it would be third place to end the event for Stu Bainborough and Jane Nichol. Problems with the car throughout the weekend would thankfully not do too much damage to the overall position. And there would be a few problems for Nigel and Kaylee Cannell too, the car not running right by the end of the event and causing some lost time. They were too far away from the lead for it to matter though, and second place was theirs. But that meant it would be a great end to the event for Daniel Harper and Chris Campbell. They win the National Rally by over 3 minutes. The pair really get into grips with the car and what it was capable of now.
It's been very, very tough this weekend. We've had quite a few different things. The organisers have had a lot of problems to overcome, and congratulations to them for getting the rally through. Yeah, we've had a good time. Been very, very difficult for us though, in a lot of respects, weather and yes, but it's been good. We've enjoyed it.
In the historics, it would be change in the H7 class as Shane Gamble and Bob Ward end the event with third place in that class at the finish. No change to the top of the class though, as Peter Horsburgh and Graham Carter continue to lie in second place there, as well as 24th place overall. But taking the H7 class win this weekend will be Ian Clare and Anthony Elks. A good result for the pair who also end the event with 20th place overall. Finishing just above Clare would be the Porsche of Peter Lythell and Jill Cotton. They end the day with 19th place overall and third in the H2 class. Colin McDowell and Michael Spence just sneak their way into the top of the H1 results with a third in-class finish in the Mini. The loss of Stanley Orr from the results at the end of day 2 should have promoted Andrew Stokes and Adrian McNally to the H2 class lead. Sadly, the pair would miss out on that in the final day and have to settle for second place in the class. They would be beaten to the class win by Ken Graham and Rory McCann. A great drive from the pair, a great switch to driving this weekend for Ken, who would usually be found servicing. No change to the top of the H1 class. Ricky Profit and Graham Wild would end the event with that second place in the class that they held for most of the weekend. But taking that class win with a fantastic 12th place overall in the Mini would be Ray Cunningham and Jared Gill. A great end to the event and a good 6 minutes ahead of the other Mini crews on the event. Barry Stevenson Wheeler and John Pickavance would end the event with third place in the H3 class. A bit of showboating at the finish would result in them losing a bit of time with the spin, but it wasn't going to make a difference to the overall result for the pair. And second in the class, ahead of Stevenson Wheeler, would be Sean Rayner and Declan Deer. The pair reaching the end of the event with 7th place overall, and most importantly, without any damage to the car. Kex Walker and Danny Matthews make a move up the results in the second half of the event, ending with 5th place overall and 4th in the H6 class in the BMW. For Rudy Lancaster and Guy Weaver, it would be 4. They hadn't been happy with the seeding towards the start of the event, and the result this weekend should help towards a better one next time round. The top of the results wouldn't really change. Barry Jones and Iwan Griffiths rounding out the podium places with a good gap either side of them on the time. For Rob Smith and Alan Cook, it would have to be second. The win not going their way this time out, but it had been a great battle right to the finish. And that, of course, means that it's the win for Jason Pritchard and Phil Clark. This would be win number 2 this weekend and would mean they stay in the championship fight that would go down to the wire on their next event a few weeks later.
Congratulations, Jason. It's been a really tough weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been difficult, but I think me and Phil have used our heads. We just did our own thing on each stage and enjoyed every mile of it. And thanks to him for being spotted on the notes and the boys in service, haven't had to touch the car, and it's ready to go for the next round.
On to the international section then, and it would be the RC3 class win for Mark Barnes and Terry Crowther. It would be a good debut on the Isle of Man for Oscar Solberg with Dale Fairness alongside. They end the event with 3rd place in the class at the finish. And there wouldn't be any changes to the other places in that class, with Marty Gallagher and Dino Sullivan ending the event with 2nd in that class and 7th place overall. But that means that it's the win for Callum Devine and Keith Moratti, a great end to the weekend for the pair to win by just 12 seconds. Hugh Hunter and Rob Fagg finished 5th place overall in the international event. The combined times over all sections of the event would also mean that Rob finishes the event as the highest placed local. Rhys Yates and Andrew Roughhead have a good clean run to end the event with 4th place, a good measured drive ensuring a finish and with a good position too. Sadly for Frederick Arlen and Torsten Eriksson, the earlier spin would have done the damage to their championship season and they end the event with 3rd place. Sadly not enough for them to take the win this season. For Matt Edwards and Darren Garrett, it would be 2nd place. The times were very close, but a fuel problem in the final stage would cause them to lose a little, and the win would have to wait for another weekend. So that means it would be the win overall, and indeed the British Rally Championship for Keith Cronin and Mikey Galvin. They did what they needed to do all weekend and held on to that lead throughout. The British Championship battle actually coming to an end with just 0.1 of a second difference this weekend and just 1 single point in the season overall. So confirmation of the results at the end of the event, wins for Keith Cronin, Jason Pritchard and Daniel Harper, and plenty of relieved happy crews behind them, grateful to get to the finish of the 138.com Rally Isle of Man 2017.
Firstly, congratulations. What a fantastic battle. Have you enjoyed the weekend?
I'm enjoying the result. It was a really tough weekend, right from the word go. Stages were really tough. The battle with Matt was tough. We had a few things go against us the weekend, but it was good to get the result in the end.